Hello again, everyone. I'm Father Joe Nazzle from Sonino Mission House in Berkeley, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Several years ago, Tina Turner asked the question, what's love got to do with it? And Jesus answers that question in today's gospel. What does love have to do with it? Everything. Love has everything to do with it. Several years ago, I was listening to a preacher wax eloquently about this gospel, and he said it was easy to fall in love, but a difficult part was to remain in love, especially when life deals us so many tragedies and setbacks that we just want to give up. He also spoke about being chosen, how Jesus said, "It wasn't you who chose me, it was I who chose you." And he said, we don't get to choose our parents, and our parents don't get to choose their children. Well, two pews in front of me were a couple with a teenage boy who was severely challenged. The parents tried to keep him quiet, but the boy was very restless and also very affectionate. He couldn't sit still, and it was all his parents could do to keep him in the pew. And as the homilist talked about remaining in love, the wife rubbed the back of her husband as he desperately tried to control their grown son, who was almost as big as he was. I not only heard a homily that day, I saw one. The purpose of love, someone once said, is to replace an empty heart with an open one. This is what love has to do with it. The danger, of course, is when we open our hearts to the pain of the world comes crashing in. And if our hearts are not big enough, when the world's pain rushes in, our hearts break. And yet when our hearts break because of our love, that's when the spirit of love that Jesus talks about in the gospel, a spirit of care and concern and compassion for one another, begins to spill out. But if we are full of care for one another, full of this kind of love that Jesus is talking about, this unconditional love, then we also have to be careful, because when the Holy Spirit stirs and ignites and inflames, we risk chaos and lose conformity. We see this happen in the first reading. These friends of Jesus thought they were the chosen ones, the privileged few who had received the Spirit of Jesus. So they were surprised when the same Spirit kept showing up on the doorsteps of unusual suspects like Cornelius, a Roman centurion. Here was a member of the occupying army who symbolized repression and oppressive military force that carried out the execution of Jesus. To think Cornelius would be a candidate for conversion is mind-boggling and heart-stretching. But Peter's heart had stretched so far that it broke wide open. He had learned the purpose of love, and now not only was his heart open, but his mind was open. In truth, he says, I see God shows no partiality. And then he raises the important question that resounds through the centuries and resonates in our present day. Can anyone withhold the water of baptism to these people who have received the Holy Spirit as we have? The power of Peter's proclamation that God shows no partiality is that Cornelius and his clan should be baptized to ritualize what was already apparent, that they were ignited and anointed and energized by the Holy Spirit. If God shows no partiality, then Christians and Muslims and Jews and Hindus and Buddhists and Sufis and all people are welcome, because God's Spirit is like a wildfire that cannot be contained or controlled. But then I recall someone once saying, the Spirit works well for movements, but fares poorly in institutions. When movements, whether they be political or spiritual or ideological or ecclesial, are institutionalized for the sake of law and order, the Spirit is often stifled because institutions tend to put up firewalls, which are essential to ward off viruses on our computers, but are dangerous for communities of faith because the Spirit will ignite faith wherever she will. If we were to allow the Holy Spirit to burn down our defenses, we might find ourselves surprised by the appearance of people of other faiths who remind us that God shows no partiality. At the very least, we would not have bishops refusing communion to people they deem unworthy, and using the Eucharist as a weapon rather than what Pope Francis has often referred to communion as the medicine of mercy. The final frontier of how God shows no partiality is found in the gospel when Jesus crosses the ultimate gap between master and slave and calls his disciples friends. Friendship is the final frontier. God's friendship with us through Jesus reflects how God's love is with us even when we're not easy to love. Which brings me to a mother's love. You know, the commandment is clear and unambiguous. Love one another. While there are many kinds of love and expressions of the depths of love Jesus is talking about, there is no greater love than a mother's love for her child. Throughout her life, from the moment of conception through carrying the child in her womb, through the pain of giving birth and bringing new life into the world, a mother knows both intuitively and intimately what Jesus means to lay down one's life for one's children. I remember how Mom would wake up long before us when we were children to get breakfast ready on those cold winter mornings when we would prefer to sleep in a few extra minutes. She would wake us up and help us get ready and send us on our way with a steaming bowl of cream of wheat or oatmeal that, in her words, would not only keep us warm on the inside but stick to our ribs. How often through the years did Mom deny something for herself to give one of us a special gift? Yes, our moms show us the meaning of love. They don't have to preach because they teach by their example. A mother's love is the closest thing I've experienced in glimpsing the unconditional love of our God. Like that mother I saw rubbing the back of her husband as he held on to the dear life of their son. The countless, often unremembered acts of kindness reveal the tenderness of God's love. Our moms protected us, nourished us, cared for us, made us better when we were sick, cheered us on when we were discouraged, made us believe in ourselves even when the doubts crowded in. From writing a letter a week in her eloquent handwriting, beginning when I was a freshman in high school and extending for many years, long after my ordination, to baking snickerdoodles when I was home for a visit, Mom has taught me how love is expressed in simple acts of kindness when we take the time to care for one another. Mother's Day offers us that annual opportunity to honor our moms. So whether we can do it in person or from a distance across the country or stretching to eternity, may the memory of our mother's love remind us how God's love remains with us forever. It's a love that offers us the wellspring of compassion that we can draw from each day of our lives to give us the courage to love and care for others as our moms have loved and cared for us. May God bless all our mothers this day, wherever they may be. And thank you, Mom, for showing me and so many others the face of God. May God bless you and bless all your family. Keep you safe. Take good care as we continue to meet in prayer.